Yes. So I'll go first, I think. So I first met Cyborg in the New Teen Titans, which is, I suspect, where most people first meted or cuted Cyborg. But I'm going to be honest, the thing that made me really love him was that original Teen Titans cartoon. I think it's a really great update of the character design. I think the character design that George Perez laid down was really great, but it definitely feels like something from the 80s, I'm not gonna lie. And I think the blue update from the cartoon is really cute, and I really think Kari Payton is like totally kick butt good in that role, and having him become the humor of the team I think was a great addition to that character. So that's where I really fell in love with him, was that original Teen Titans cartoon. So how about you, Jason? Where did you first meet Cyborg?
I have no idea. I honestly don't know where I met Cyborg. Cyborg is one of these DC characters that I feel like I always knew. And because I really didn't read the New Teen Titans until I was well into college, I don't have a personal connection to him or remember where I saw him. I also watched that first Teen Titans cartoon, but I remember him being around. I remember seeing him pop up in comic books, but I can't tell you a specific one. Besides, I did buy regularly Jeff Johns' Teen Titans run, and he was the mentor there.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I'm pretty certain I read or met him in a comic book before then. To be honest with you, I don't know.
That's okay. That happens sometimes.
My computer files have been deleted.
They have, evidently.
Yep. So, all right, let's move straight into the History 101, where Ashley and her singular TA will teach us everything we need to know about Cyborg. So when that eventual Cyborg movie comes out and he tries to take over the entire universe, you can 111-00011 take him back, and because you know his life story.
There you go. So caveat right off the top, because this is a geek history lesson, we have 2 really awesome episodes on the history of the Teen Titans already that you can go and check out. And so because of that, I'm going to gloss over maybe some of the larger overarching details and focus more on Cyborg's actions and when he comes to the forefront of those, and then his solo adventures that come later in his time with the Justice
Damn
League.
straight. We don't need another Teen Titans lesson. You hear that, listeners? You want that one? You go back and listen to the archives.
That's right.
This is a Cyborg only lesson.
That's
this
right.
is a Victor Stone only lesson. This is a Cybertron. What was his name?
Cyberion.
What a dumb
Oh,
name.
dude, we're going to get to that.
Right,
it's
cool.
real dumb.
All right, I'm curious.
So Victor Vic Stone was born to Silas and Eleanor Stone, 2 scientists who loved him very much, while also using him as a test subject in a number of experiments.
Illegal.
Wildly. Child abuse. They successfully enhanced his intelligence, raising his IQ to genius level. And even though as he grew older, Victor appreciated the power of his intelligence, he came to resent his parents for not letting him grow up to be the man that he was supposed to be. Vic was athletically gifted, but his parents, especially his father, were not interested in nurturing these gifts. So, of course, he threw himself into athletics and became a high school football star. Awesome. In some continuities, he's either being scouted by college football teams or he's been offered a full athletic scholarship. And his dad is like, F that noise. You're going to go on the power of your brain.
That's how you meet him in Smallville. In the Smallville series, he is on the rival football team that Clark Kent... There's only one season where Clark Kent plays football, and the team that comes to Smallville, the town, is and Victor Stone's on it.
Yeah? Is it from Detroit? Because that's where Vic is from.
I don't remember.
He's born in Detroit.
I don't remember. I don't remember. Probably. Let's say yes.
I don't go into it at all, so this is the most you're going to hear about Smallville.
All right, cool.
During this time, he also becomes friends with a young man named Ron Evers, who is self-described as a, quote, miscreant, unquote.
That makes sense.
Who leads Vic a little bit into a life of criminality. And at this time, he's often physically injured by their exploits, although he still manages to maintain both his home and school life. What ultimately drives a wedge between their friendship is when Ron turns towards radical terrorism, and Vic realizes that he wants to help people instead of hurting them, no matter what his issues with his parents are. So
isn't that always the case?
He's a very mature young man.
You and your high school friends, you're like, hey, I think I want to be a doctor. And your friend's like, I think I'm going to become a terrorist. You know what I want to do? Blow up buses.
Yeah.
You know, it's, man, if I had a nickel for every time I've heard that story, I'd have 3 nickels.
3 whole nickels. Wow, you live an exciting life. Luckily for us, though, the Cyborg origin hasn't changed much over the years, although it has been retold a couple of times. So we really only have to go over it once, and we're going to do it right now.
Oh, you're going to kind of sort of combine them all?
Well, I'm going to go over the original one, and then I'm going to go over the updated one, and really that's it.
All right, cool.
And it's only one tiny detail that changes. So the original Cyborg origin. Following an explosion at Star Labs, Victor Stone is horribly injured and physically maimed to the point where he is at death's door. This same explosion kills his mother, Eleanor.
Yep.
His father, Silas Stone, brilliant scientist, builds a number of complicated cybernetic implants fused to Vic's nervous system and saves his life, giving him the classic cyborg look that we all think of when you think of Cyborg. Fun fact, Vic must revisit his father every few months to be refitted with new cybernetic implants as long as he is still growing. That's the origin. The post-New 52 origin, the one that is currently in place in continuity at the time of this recording, hello future people, it's all the same except the traditional cybernetics that he's implanted with are changed to be derivative of alien technology from a mother box that Silas had been studying in Star Labs. The end.
Yeah.
So basically the same. Explosion, mother dies, Vic barely survives.
It's just that he used the mother box instead of
hand building every piece of it. Not long after this initial incident, Vic was invited to join the new Teen Titans, along with Robin, Beast Boy, Kid Flash, Starfire, Raven, and Wonder Girl. He first wanted to join for the emotional support these other teams with strange powers could offer him, but soon as a sports star and one of the older members of the team, he takes on a role of emotional leadership himself to the younger Titans who look up to him and often comment on how cool they think he looks, which I actually think is a really, really nice detail.
Well, can I ask you something? Because you're a big Teen Titans fan. Also, I don't remember them calling themselves the new Teen Titans. I think New Teen Titans is only for us.
It is. They are called Teen Titans, but the title of the book is the New Teen Titans because there is that 60s team as well.
Yeah, totally. And it's something that I only encountered recently by rereading these because they just released them in these really cool omnibus, and I've been
bench pressing those to read them.
Yes, and in the early adventures, a lot of the other Vic's kind of an asshole.
He's very angry at the beginning.
He's very aggro in the beginning, and I never remembered. And I get he's an athlete, but there's a little bit of a cliche in there that the jock dude is like this angry guy. There is.
Yeah. And I will say this about the new Teen Titans. It's a very seminal run. It's a very important run. In the beginning, like a lot of John Hughes movies that were coming out at the same time, they are, especially the newer characters who are not legacy characters, your Starfire, your Raven, your Cyborg, your Beast Boy, they are more caricatures than fully developed characters, but they get there, and they get to be the characters
I agree.
that we all know and love, but
I'm just pointing out that it kind of surprised me, because Cyborg is not...
You don't think of him as being particularly aggressive,
angry.
do you?
He's not angry. Yeah. No, he's very calm and chill and robotic.
But I could see how if you'd been mostly exploded by your parents who'd abused you for most of your life, and then they turned you into a robot and you didn't really know who you were anymore, I could see how you might be angry about that.
Like Silas Stone, I think, is a terrible dad.
He's
absolutely terrible dad.
Yeah. So in the beginning, the Teen Titans also have a teacher named Sarah Sims because they're all school-aged. And she really admires Vic, and she really sees the humanity in him rather than the machine. They will later go on to have a romantic relationship in a different continuity where there's only like 5 years age difference between them instead of like 15. And then at the same time, one of his father's colleagues at Star Labs who works with Vic a lot is Dr. Sarah Charles. So two Sarahs, their names are spelled the same way, both with an H. This Sarah helps Vic with his cybernetics when they need to be replaced. They also strike up a very strong friendship because she has no issue intellectually separating the man from the machine the way that other characters do. She will later become a romantic interest for him. They date for a while. She helps bring Vic back when he's unconscious and lost following the events of the Titans Hunt storyline. And along with Beast Boy, Sarah is probably Vic's best friend. I think that these characters, because they look the same, they have the same name, and they have the same arc, I think maybe Marv Wolfman forgot that he'd already included a version of this character and then created a different version with the same first name later because they both are romantic interests, and the age gap between them sort of conspicuously gets less than a decade the older Cyborg gets. I just thought that would be interesting to point out.
All right.
Titans Hunt storyline, right. So in his solo series, when we get to that, the age gap closes between them even more until Dr. Sarah, what's her last name? I'm so sorry, I scrolled past it in my notes. Dr. Sarah Charles, they actually date for a little while in his solo series. And it gets a little bit weird. So in Titans Hunt, what happens is that a missile crashes directly into Cyborg and he needed intensive repair. So he's upgraded by a team of Russian scientists because they're like the ones who are closest at hand, but his mind is lost and it's repressed. And so Beast Boy and Dr. Sarah Charles take on the idea of trying to bring him back. His mind is later restored with help from an alien computer intelligence called the Technus. Jason, do you know how the Technus was created?
I don't even know what it is.
All right, so this is a little PG-13, so if you have PG-level children, like, move them out of the way.
I mean, we've talked about way more adult stuff on this podcast.
Right, but so the Technus is created due to a sexual union between Swamp Thing and a machine planet. I'm not kidding.
Oh, no, I think that's an Alan Moore
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So this is a spin-off of that, and I just think that's, like, way too weird to even begin contemplating. But so that's how it came to be. You can bring a less than PG-13 children back to the
Swamp Thing. They love them. The kids love Swamp Thing.
Do they?
Yeah, they do.
Great. So Cyborg had to live with the Technus in his mind in order to keep him sane and healthy and sort of as a repayment for saving his life.
Okay.
And during this time, he adopted the name Cyberion and appeared progressively less human than we'd ever seen him before. And it was his goal at the time to teach the Technus about humanity, but they were slowly taking over his body and his hardware until they could connect back with the Technus home planet because they, like E.T., they want a phone home. Mm-hmm. So eventually Cyberion left Earth to return to this Technus planet, but he did come back to set up a new Technus colony on both the moon and then on Earth. So from there, he begins to kidnap other Titans members and even sent a probe out looking for himself because his consciousness as Vic Stone was dormant at the time, so he didn't realize that he was Cyborg and Cyborg wasn't out in the world somewhere. So once he had captured all of his friends, Cyberion plugged them into virtual realities where they could live in perfect happiness in their perfect world, sort of like what the Black Mercy tries to do for you, if that helps you. And some examples of this are Beast Boy is imagining that he's still in the Doom Patrol and they're being celebrated by the JSA as being true heroes in the world. And Nightwing makes up with Batman. Batman smiles with him. They hug and they sit down to talk about their relationship.
Cool.
And the Justice League shows up around this time to try and help, and they free the kidnapped Titans, but then the Titans and the Justice League have to decide how to deal with Cyberion and whether or not they want to try to bring Cyborg back. The Justice League is super aggro about this, and they literally just want to do away with it. They're like, we should just, kill Cyborg. It's what he would want because he's not in there. Yeah, it's real rough.
All right.
In a lot of Teen Titans and then later Titans storylines, the Justice League are buttholes. But the original 5 Titans were able to make contact with Vic's human side and pull him out of this occupation by the Technus. Hooray. They had to hold him down, though, physically and download his consciousness into the Omegadrome. Jason, do you know what the Omegadrome is?
No, but at that time, it would have been like that bad dial-up sound, like...
Oh, God, yeah. So what the Omegadrome is, it's a morphing war suit that Minion had worn. Minion is a really minor Teen Titans character if you've never heard of it.
It sort of sounds familiar.
Yeah. So the Cyborg lesson is going to be rife with weird technology names, so strap in. So Vic was welcomed back into the team in this new form, but he struggled feeling even less human and more machine than he was in the past because he didn't have any part of his body was no longer human.
Even his eyepiece?
No, he was total because he's in this different body now. He's in this Omegadrome machine.
I'm sorry.
But don't worry, guys, because Nightwing revealed that he had cloned Vic's human body just in his spare time.
I'm just going to tell you that is a very Batman thing to do. And I believe it. And also it makes sense because later on in Teen Titans history, there is a reveal that Tim Drake cloned Connor Kent.
Yes.
And this is where Jeff Johns got that beat.
Yeah, it's a definite callback to this moment. Mm-hmm. So Victor is able to put his consciousness back into it, even though it still has the cybernetic. Like, he's not just Vic Stone. Like,
do you know how he did that?
Is Cyborg. No.
He connected up through dial-up.
Oh, God. But the cool thing...
you know what? I'm actually going to find the sound.
Okay, great. But during this time, even though he's back in what we think of as the classic Cyborg body, he's able to retain the abilities of the Omega Drome.
Why?
Just reasons.
But he looks classic Cyborg.
He does look classic Cyborg again. He then left the Titans. He was like, thanks for the body. I'm out, guys.
Peace out, suckers.
To move to Los Angeles with Beast Boy, who wanted to be an actor. And then he leaves Los Angeles and moves to Central City. Okay? Still with me?
Oh, I know. You're going to start touching on Wally West, Jeff Johns run.
I am.
Yeah, where he had gold. He had a gold costume.
He did.
By the way, just in case, if you don't know what the sound of dial-up is, kids, here you go. This is dial-up.
Oh, it's so awful. And then my little brother would pick up the phone and ruin the connection.
We're going to play it all. This is a full history lesson.
Oh.
How terrible is this?
If you are too young to remember the sound of that, please tweet me. I'm interested in our demographics.
Yeah, so like in the 90s, if you wanted to get on the internet.
Dude, I had that till like 2006.
Okay, until 2006. Man, 2006.
Oh yeah, my family is not early adopters.
All right. That was the sound you had to listen to get on the internet. And so you got to think about Cyborg during the 80s and 90s. Every time he's doing something, every time he's trying to like do some information, it's this. Oh, of course it doesn't play.
Sound cue. Sound cue.
Yes, Robin, let me get that for you.
Yeah, but then if Beast Boy called him to order pizza.
Wait, Robin. Yep, hive.
But then your connection was still
Robin, you're ruining the connection.
Also crap. It wasn't even a good connection at the time. Like, dial-up was the worst.
Man, I did not think we would get a history lesson on dial-up sounds.
You're welcome.
All right, continue.
So Cyborg's
in Central City.
In Central City. So in Central City, he partners with Wally West, the greatest Flash that ever flashed, to fight the Thinker. If you watch the Flash TV show, you'll know about the Thinker.
This is actually Can I ask? Can I get a little bit of spoilers here for your recommended reading?
Yeah, it's not in my recommended reading.
Oh, this is such a good pick.
Is this your bonus? This is Jason's bonus recommended reading?
This is Jason's bonus recommended reading.
Because I don't know what volume this is.
That won't be on the site. This actually is a great Cyborg story, and I always think that this story where the Flash and Cyborg is there and going against the Thinker, who is now the current villain of the Flash TV show.
He's awesome.
He's a great actor, and it's a great Cyborg story, and I think this was Jeff Johns sort of like setting the pieces for his Teen Titans run.
I agree. I definitely agree. So in order to go against the Thinker, Wally basically needs Vic to hack into the Central City Internet / the Thinker's network. In doing so, he is able to take down the Thinker in the end, but he loses his Omega Drome abilities in the process, because basically if Cyborg needs to be taken out, they shoot him with a lot of static electricity and override his processor so that he's unconscious. And this was a way to reset the character back to the Cyborg that we know and love per the New Teen Titans continuity / power set, like Jason said, in building toward what is going to become Jeff Johns' Teen Titans run. So by the time this is over, he's back to good old Cyborg. And now we're going to skip to 52.
Whoa.
Jason's favorite series of all time.
52 is the Weekly Miniseries. It's not my favorite series of all time, but it's one of
I know
it's one of my best DC comics of all time. It's DC published a weekly comic that was set in every week of a year. That's why it's called 52, because they got 52 weeks.
Yes. And I know it seems
I forgot that he was in that.
I know it seems like we're skipping a lot of time, but Cyborg is very much in this era a supporting tertiary character. Kind of like Jason said in his Meet Cute, he was like around in a bunch of stuff.
He's a character that
but this is his next defining moment.
Yeah, he's a character that kind of participates in everything that the DC universe. He's very similar to Martian Manhunter
in Black Canary.
And Black Canary. They're characters that touch upon almost every DC event and every DC team, almost appear in almost every DC book, but they're usually not the main character.
Yes. So he does appear in 52 briefly. He's not one of the main focuses, sadly. But in week 5, Cyborg becomes bonded to Firestorm when they return to Earth after fighting Alexander Luthor Jr. during the events of Infinite Crisis.
Just to move back a little bit, in case you want my bonus recommended reading.
I do.
It's The Flash by Jeff Johns I think it's book 3.
Okay.
I think it's book 3. If it's not book 3, it's book 2.
Well, you know what? Get 1, 2, and 3 because it's a great Flash run.
Yeah, it's either book 2 or book 3.
There you go.
The Flash by Jeff Johns.
That's what we did with no prior research.
Yep.
So, of course, he's not going to remain bonded to Firestorm forever, but their separation causes extreme damage to Cyborg and takes him off the board for the rest of 52, and he has to be taken back to Titan's Tower and rebuilt by Wendy and Marvin, with the entire process taking a year.
Yep.
And when he woke up, this is when he discovers the new Teen Titans team written by Jeff Johns. Now, Jason, really quick, for people who didn't know, who are Wendy and Marvin?
The Wonder Twins.
They are!
And this is actually when he finds the second iteration of the new Teen Titans team, because originally before 52, it's Robin, Connor, Cassie, and whatever.
Yeah, but they fail really quickly.
In Infinite Crisis happens, Superboy dies, and so when Cyborg wakes up, this is when he sees like Ravagers on the team, Kid Devil's on the team. He's like, who the hell? He's like, to him, it's kind of like, why are the villains on the team?
Yeah. So when Jeff Johns rebooted Teen Titans, we're kind of jumping around in continuity a little bit. Sorry, guys. In 2004, with a bunch of new legacy characters, Vic, Beast Boy, Raven, and Starfire took up more mentorship roles to protect the integrity of the new team and to keep them from suffering too much oversight from the Justice League.
Yep.
Spoiler alert, the Justice League still gives them too much oversight, especially in the first arc. He was integral in the Teen Titans' defeat of Dr. Light. This is when Dr. Light is a bad guy, using his solar shields to save the day, putting him in a lot of trouble and injuring him severely. Although everybody wants to celebrate him for this victory, he's adamant that he could not have done it without the help of all the younger characters, which is really, really, really nice. During this time, many characters came to visit Cyborg, because now he's back in that coma, and made deep confessions to him while he slept.
And of course, he recorded them all.
All of which were recorded by his logs, and he reviews them over the course of this series. These memories are often used as a storytelling device to teach us more about whatever character is being featured in the A-plot. I actually really like the fact that he recorded all of these.
It's a little creepy.
It's not, because that's what a computer would do. But fun fact, Cyborg's memories are where we first meet Miss Martian.
Are they?
Yeah, you meet her there in like issue number 4 or 5, and then she appears in like issue 30. But you see her there, and she's like, I don't know if I can be a part of this team, and she leaves, and then they go back to get her again, and she's in Australia.
Oh, that's cool.
It's so great. We have a really great lesson on Miss Martian if you want to go listen to that too.
Hold on a second. Let me think about Miss Martian. Hold on.
Okay, can you pull that up for me? It's the worst sound ever.
Yep, she's there. Okay, got it.
Great. So
You're welcome.
It's going to happen at least 2 more times, so strap in. At the same time, Cyborg almost joined the Justice League of America. In Volume 2, Issue number 3, when Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman all agreed that they wanted to offer him membership because of the good work he was doing with the Titans at the time. But later, when Green Lantern and Black Canary take over leadership of the JLA and they write a new roster, he's just not part of the plan anymore.
He does briefly...
he becomes a reserve member. And we're going to get into that.
Is this pre-New 52?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was like, he does become a member of the Justice League.
He does,
before...
but he's only a reserve member.
Okay, I didn't know the reserve member thing, but I was going to say, like, it is an interesting thing that everybody's like, oh, he wasn't part of the Justice League till the New 52.
But he was sort of on the auxiliary.
Well, you're going to talk about that right now?
Well, right, I'm going to talk about Titans East first.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So instead of being offered a place on the Justice League like he deserved, also I think because they were like, look, John Stewart's not a member anymore. We need help. It's happening.
we nerd black guy.
Yeah, basically.
Is that what you're going for? Okay, got it.
So instead, he goes on to form Titans East with a bunch of Titans you've never heard of, like Anima, Hawk and Dove, Lagoon Boy, Little Barda, Power Boy, and Son of Vulcan.
Oh, I hate Lagoon Boy.
If you like Lagoon Boy, please tweet to Jason. You're going to get no tweets.
Nope.
However, during a training exercise, they suffered a surprise attack from Trigon, a.k.a. Raven's angry demon daddy, and Cyborg is hit with a beam of energy and lands in a crater with only his head and torso intact. Following this, he is placed in a hover chair. Think future Professor X if you're struggling for a visual.
Also, during that time, every time he opened his mouth, it was this.
You think this is a lot funnier than it is.
I just gotta be honest. I never thought I would have the attempt on a podcast to play the dial-up sound over and over again. I'm sorry for interrupting your lesson, Professor Ashley. I will come erase the boards after class. Please continue.
Make you write lines.
I promise only to do that joke one more time.
Okay. pick your moment.
Yep.
So he's placed in a hover chair to recover during the new series Titans.
I remember that, yeah, because it is a very much Professor X like hover chair from the 90s. Because that's what Professor X had in the 90s.
But don't worry about it, because by issue 5, his body's back in shape, in time to have his physical body overtaken and overtaken by a resurrected Jericho in order to kill the rest of the Titans and Teen Titans. Jericho, really quick, if you don't know, is Joey, son of Slade Wilson, Deathstroke. His whole deal is he can jump from body to body.
Oliver, he's my son.
Yeah.
He's my son, Oliver.
He's actually really great in Arrow right now.
He's quite good.
He's better looking than Jericho has ever thought about being in the past.
But he doesn't have the mutton chops.
Thank Christ. Jericho is then excised from Cyborg's body by Static. Yay, Static, who's also the newest member of the team at the time. But Cyborg pretends to still be possessed by Jericho in order to draw out Vigilante, who had been hunting for Jericho at the time. Sadly, he does such a good job that Vigilante shoots Cyborg in the head.
So many Marv Wolfman characters.
Well, yeah.
Also, by the way, Static Shock, if you don't know, one of the greatest superheroes ever created in the 90s. Static from the Milestone universe.
Mm-hmm. He had a cartoon.
I would love to do a Static Shock episode.
Oh, well, we actually have a ton of requests for it. Hopefully, when Milestone comes back.
When Milestone comes back, I would love to reread those issues.
Depends on if that or the Young Justice cartoon comes back first.
Oh, yeah, because he's in season 3.
That's right. Mm-hmm. It'll definitely happen. Mm-hmm. Definitely. So the next story that is told is set during an ambiguous time in Teen Titans history. There's like a one-shot with Cyborg. When a man disguised as Cyborg, but not Cyborg, but disguised as him, breaks up the wedding of Dr. Sarah Charles and her scientist fiancé, only known as Deshawn. His breaking up of the wedding is then broken up by actual Cyborg, who comes to save the day. It is then revealed that Deshawn, the fiancé, is actually evil and is connected to Project M and was stealing technology from Silas Stone and Star Labs to sell to the military. Cyborg then learns that the man who had impersonated him to attack the wedding was Ron Evers, his screwed up former best friend who became a terrorist during his very first ever story.
Yeah, because everybody wanted that to come back, didn't they?
Yeah.
All right.
So it turns out that Ron Evers was one of the other people. He'd been enhanced by some of Cyborg's old implants.
Of course he had.
And then he leads Cyborg to another character who had been enhanced with his former implants, known as Cyborg 2.0.
Oh, Lord.
It's going to get real dumb. It is then revealed that Cyborg 2.0 is from Titans Tomorrow and was stolen from his timeline to be part of this evil project. Following this...
We should probably say what Titans Tomorrow is, though.
Okay, what's Titans Tomorrow?
Titans Tomorrow is when Tim Drake and his team of Teen Titans go to the future and they discover that they're all evil.
The evil versions
They're
of
evil
themselves.
versions of themselves, yeah.
So following this, Cyborg has to fight the Cyborg Revenge Squad. I'm not kidding. Made up of the Fearsome Five, Magenta, Girder the Thinker, and Cyborg Girl. It's Cyborg, but with girl tagged on, and this is the same G at the end. Was that a sigh I heard?
Yeah.
He isn't able to defeat them, but he puts up a good fight before fleeing the scene to fight Mr. Orr, O-R-R, who's the man behind all this madness, who he does defeat. So then the Cyborg Revenge Squad just goes away and nobody ever writes about it again because it's really stupid.
It is really stupid.
Then Blackest Night happens. Jason, what's Blackest Night?
You see, Ashley, there are black rings out there.
Are there?
And they bring the dead back to life. And they make them superpowered zombies.
Dun, dun, dun.
That was Blackest Night.
That was Blackest Night. Cyborg teams up with Starfire and Beast Boy to head up an emergency team to fight all the zombie titans, and they eventually join the battle in Coast City. They're pretty minor.
That's a good miniseries because one of the titans that are resurrected is Terra.
Yes.
It's really good.
Jericho also resurrected?
I think so. It's a good little story. It's a really good story.
It's I would love to do a Tara lesson, but it would be really tough.
It'd be really short.
Because she basically dies and then comes back a couple other times, and most importantly in Blackest Night. So it's pretty cool. He finally gets to join the JLA after the events of Justice League Cry for Justice, which is horrible, at the invitation of Donna Troy to join the new team being headed up by Kimio Hoshi. So, while he's on the team, he befriends Red Tornado, which is really, really cool. Jason, who's Red Tornado?
He's a robot that spins.
That's right, and becomes an important figure.
I have a lot to say about this Justice League.
Do you?
I do.
All right, well, let me go over this really quick. So he befriends Red Tornado, and together they develop a plan to make Cyborg indestructible. Spoiler, it doesn't work because Red Tornado is almost destroyed in battle, and it falls on Cyborg to rebuild him and restore his friend to his proper working state. What do you have to say about this Justice League?
Well, the team is not really headed up by Kimoshu, who is Dr. Light, or I don't know how to say
Well, I
that.
think she's the one who helps bring them together.
She's the public face of it.
Well, there you go.
Do you know who the true leader of this team was?
No.
Dick Grayson Batman. This is his Justice League team. This is when he was the leader of the team. That's when Mon-El was on the team. And is also when Starfire joined the team. This is when sort of the Titans became the Justice League for about a year.
Yeah, for like an entire minute.
Because they also had Kongorilla and then the bad blue Starman.
Oh, yeah.
There are some good stories in this run. Mark Bagley also draws a lot of it, but
I didn't know that.
There are also some really bad stories in it because this is right before the New 52, but there are some interesting things because a lot of their stories do deal with them now being the Justice League.
Them being the adults.
Yeah, and there is a story where they actually fight their younger selves because I feel like that's the classic Titan story.
Which also happened in Titans Rebirth. They fought evil younger versions of themselves.
Well, it happens in here. It happens here as well,
that's cool.
Which is very interesting. No, there are some fun beats in this run, but this is the Dick Grayson Batman Justice League.
So not too long after he debuted, Cyborg was written off the team, although writer James Robinson insisted that he would have an important presence on the team. Spoiler, he doesn't. Cyborg is given a backup in 3 issues, Justice League of America number 48 through 50, where he fights his former friend Red Tornado, who had been driven to madness by the Starheart, which I think is really cool. During a flashback in this story, it is revealed that Vic had rebuilt Red Tornado, and while he'd done that, he'd employed the same self-replicating nanites that Prometheus used to infect Roy Harper after he cut off his arm, and that's what drew Roy into madness. So that's what happened to Red Tornado. Cyborg eventually frees Red Tornado using his power matrix. Good job. He shows up for 5 entire seconds during Generation Lost to help Wonder Woman and Starfire, who are searching for a post-resurrection Maxwell Lord. And then he makes his next most important appearance in The Return of Bruce Wayne, of all things, where he helps Red Robin, his former Titans teammate, in his search for Bruce Wayne, and unintentionally unleashes a huge explosion of Omega energy, which is not very helpful and is why he, I guess, doesn't keep helping Tim on his search. When the Justice League go on to battle Eclipso, they recruit Cyborg, Red Tornado, Dr. Light, the not evil one, Animal Man, Kongorilla, Zoriel, Tasmanian Devil, and Bulleteer to go to the moon where the reserve members saved the day. And that's sort of his last big foray with the Justice League until the New 52 happens. Jason, really quick, what's the New 52?
It's where the DC reboot happened. It's because Barry Allen traveled back into the past to see his mom, and then he thought, that's not a good idea. Then he came back to the present, and everything was different, and everybody had lines on their costumes, and suddenly Cyborg was in the Justice League.
Yes. So this is where Jeff Johns and Jim Lee gave Cyborg his new origin, the one that we talked about at the top of the show with the Mother Box, in Justice League. And their Justice League origin, that first arc that they wrote. Vic was given his first eponymous title, written by David F. Walker and drawn by, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your name, Yvonne Reese.
I think it's Yvonne Reese, yeah.
I'm sorry if I said it wrong. Like all the other New 52 characters, this solo series begins 5 years in the past and details Cyborg's updated origin. Dr. Sarah Charles returns and is an important supporting character and team member of Star Labs, along with Dr. Thomas O. Morrow. And I really love this idea because Dr. Morrow is, of course, the creator of Red Tornado, who we knew Cyborg had a close relationship in the previous continuity. So it's really cool. Even though the story doesn't get there, I think they were trying to drive toward that same kind of relationship.
I like that story. I actually have that trade, and
the first trade is really good.
Yeah, the first trade is really good. And I have to credit Yvonne, if that's how we're thinking we're saying it, for what I think is the best costume of Cyborg of all time. He finally, because here's my problem with Cyborg.
Sure.
I don't like the look of New Teen Titans Cyborg. I think he looks silly, and I think he looks dated, and it looks like he has a tank top on, and I've never liked that.
It does look like he has a tank top on.
I've never liked that for a Cyborg. And then when they rebooted him in the New 52, he was too bulky for me. I was like, oh, he's too big.
Well, in this arc, there is a continuity point where they slim him down into that new design.
And this new design is the design that he's currently still wearing in Rebirth, and also... a little bit of spoilers for Justice League. You get a hint of this costume at the very end of Justice League.
Cool, yeah.
And it looks so good in live action. Yeah.
I also love this run because it is set in Vic's hometown of Detroit. That's where this Big Star Labs facility is set. And to me, Cyborg being from Detroit defines his character in a way that is lacking when... sometimes we gloss over this fact. I like that he returns there and we have to see him dealing with the city because, Detroit has a lot of character to it, and it's been in... I don't want to say a state of disrepair, but like it's a city that's been in trouble for a long time, and it's a city that fictionally I think could really use a hero, and I like Cyborg being their hero.
Sure.
This series also introduced the idea of the Star Labs Red Room, which is the room where they research alien technology. This is where the explosion took place. This is why Vic winds up bonded with the Mother Box. Silas, his father, has an ongoing mission of trying to heal Victor and return as much of his humanity as possible, doing things like injecting him with nanites to try and control and balance some of his electronic output. Their work there allows Victor to discover that through the Mother Box, he has access to the new God's data library, and he's able to discover Darkseid's true invasion plans for Earth, which is a very important detail when it comes to his Justice League adventures. Then when parademons invade the Red Room, Cyborg has to protect Dr. Sarah Charles, and his defense systems kick in automatically. This is something that the movie also steals, which is how he learns that his arm can transform into the sonic cannon for the first time, that very iconic Cyborg move. And while he is able to save Sarah's life, Vic doesn't like this extreme lack of control over his cybernetics, and he gets into a fight with his father, accusing him and saying, "You did this to me."
That's right.
He then flees the lab and winds up fighting more parademons out on the street because they're sort of everywhere. And here he absorbs their boom tube energy. And from this point forward, he is able to teleport himself using the same system. And the first time he tries to do that, he actually winds up teleporting to where Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, and Aquaman are fighting Darkseid and the parademons. And effectively, this is the New 52 origin of the Justice League. Cyborg just sort of like shows up there.
Yeah.
Even though the team fails ultimately in this first fight and Cyborg has to teleport them all away because Darkseid is too strong, he cements himself as an integral part of the team and helps found them. And I do like that he becomes a founding member of the Justice League, but I don't like that it erases his Teen Titans history. But we'll talk more about that in our discussion.
Okay, sure.
Then in his solo series, he tries to focus on reconciliation with his father, who is ultimately more concerned with the integrity of his cybernetics than how Vic is coping and the reality of his new situation. He is often called on to help Batman with detective work through the use of his cybernetics and his ability to download and process data or hack faster than anyone else in the DC Comics universe, which I think is really cool. I like the idea that Batman will just like text him every once in a while and be like, "Hey, I need help with this." There's even an entire issue about how Vic is able to monitor crime all over the world and alert authorities and start investigations and pass on information even when he is sleeping. Because fun fact, Cyborg does sleep. He doesn't have to, but he states that he likes to because it makes him feel more human. And he does dream. But
you know what his dreams are?
Tell me.
A lot of this.
Actually, a lot of fourth world stuff. I wish you could see how hard Jason's laughing.
I just hope somehow somebody is fast forwarding through our podcast and then just thinks their radio broke.
That would be funny. So alongside the Justice League, he fights David Graves, who transports the League to the Valley of the Souls.
Oh, yeah, that story.
Where he sees a representation of his former self who tries to convince him that Victor Stone is dead and Cyborg is a pale imitation of the original. In a later conversation with the Flash, Barry Allen, readers learn that Vic mostly lives in the Watchtower, and he only returns to his home in Detroit when he has to go to Star Labs or see his father, and he worries that this isolation will further damage his humanity. When the Justice League must save Atlantis during the Throne of Atlantis storyline, Silas offers Victor upgrades that would allow him to operate underwater, but for fear of sacrificing more of himself, he turns it down, although he eventually does accept it in order to save the rest of the League, who had been captured by Ohm's forces. He pops up again in
Ocean Master.
Om, like in yoga, Om, spelled the same way. In Trinity War, Cyborg is the first one to notice that Shazam is headed to Kandak, and he alerts the rest of the League to this. He then spends the majority of the storyline working with Martian Manhunter, doing an autopsy on Dr. Light to prove that Superman did not murder him and clear Superman's name. Then the crime syndicate attacks Prime Earth, that's hard to say, and Cyborg's previous cybernetics combine to create a new character named Grid.
The Grid.
Operated by a sentient computer virus who plays an important part in Forever Evil, and I don't love the idea of. During this storyline, Cyborg returns to Detroit to work with his father and Dr. Morrow on a new cybernetic body that is slimmer than the classic design and looks more human, and Jason Inman approved.
It's this story because his solo series launches out of this. This is where he gets the super awesome costume design. Because his it's a little confusing, but yeah, that it's the idea that computer virus had been infected in him for a couple years,
and he just realized.
And then when they activated it, it took all the cybernetics away. It took like 90% of his cybernetic pieces away, so he was just like a body, like a skeleton sitting there.
Yeah,
and then this fully realized robot. Grid is now walking around, and so you can also fight as Grid in Injustice 2. And if they ever do a Cyborg movie, I kind of think Grid should be the villain.
Oh, that's
he's
cool.
He's kind of Cyborg's only real villain.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't love it. Grid then
his
attacks.
design's really cool.
It is. It's a good design. He attacks Detroit, of course, causing Cyborg to team up with the Metal Men to shut him down, which I think is great. And I think Cyborg should team up with the Metal Men all the time.
Forever Evil has some great beats.
Results.
Yeah, I would say story beats.
He then becomes tasked with helping Shazam integrate into the League. Together, they do things like play Xbox and ping pong with their hands, because they're the two youngest members.
They're the youngest members,
League.
yeah.
Their partnership I actually think is really cute, and I wish we had seen more of. They meet up with the rest of the League to take down Power Ring, where Vic interfaces with the Ring of Volthoom directly and learns all about its history until he is forced out and short-circuited, removing him from the battle at large. Shazam rushes Cyborg back to Star Labs to recover in the medical bay. He next helps the Bat family fight Darkseid on Apocalypse and revive Damian Wayne. Boo. Then the first arc boo. The first arc of his solo series does an excellent job. By the end of it, he's pretty much rehabbed his relationship with his father Silas, which actually makes for really great reading. And then the second half of his series, second trade, is where you can kind of see the wheels coming off a little bit. There's a lot of artist changes that happen. You can see that there were scheduling problems. There are several event issues thrown into the bunch that have little to nothing to do with the overarching event or narrative, and that make basically for a lot of boring nonsense in the middle of what was a really great story. There's even an issue where Dr. Sarah Charles is stuck on a plane that's being hijacked, and it's solved literally by Vic hacking through the internet, which is super, super boring. It's literally just him flying in a bunch of zeros and ones, but there's a nice lesson at the core of it because they're trying to profile who might ultimately be in charge, and they're kind of racist about it in the beginning, and then they learn to not be racist, and they save the day. It doesn't really end the solo series, except the issues just sort of stop being published.
It was just sort of canceled. Yeah.
Yes. Vic and Sarah's relationship is kindled in earnest during the second arc, which I love, when a harsh version of Sarah from another Earth is introduced.
Oh, of course.
She wants to kill Silas and Victor because on her Earth, Silas's cybernetics ruined everything, destroyed the world, and Victor was killed. Other Earth evil Sarah can't stand to see the man she loves overtaken by the thing she hates the most, but she resists killing him and kisses him instead. However, her visiting Earth 1 brought a bunch of techno-sapiens with her. Techno-sapiens are the evil virus people that Silas caused to happen on this other Earth, whom Vic must save the world from. This storyline, to me, suffers from the problem of being a Justice League level threat event that only Cyborg has to handle because this is the Cyborg solo series.
Yep.
He does save the day. He doesn't kiss good Sarah, and the series ends. Then DC Rebirth happens. Jason, what's DC Rebirth?
I mean, there's nothing much to say. DC Rebirth is just another rebranding of DC. It's not a reboot.
It's not.
Just because all the continuity that we just talked about is still around.
It's still around. Cyborg does remain a part of the Justice League.
Gets a new solo series.
Retains an eponymous solo series written by John Semper that continued to this day. But because of the time that we're recording this, we're not going to go into it because it might be spoilery.
Mm-hmm. And fights the rat catcher.
He does.
Yeah.
That's your Cyborg lesson.
Yeah.
Woo!
That was very technological. I only have one thing to say to you, Ashley.
What could that possibly be? Oh, is this all the operating?
It's all the operating Mac sounds.
Oh, man.
It's also what Cyborg sounds like every time you wake up.
Wally is also a Mac fun fact.
Let's move into the recommended reading, where Ashley's going to give you 3 picks. We know one of them won't be The Flash by Jeff Johns' book 2, but you should check that out. And you can go to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. You can find our full list of all the books we've ever recommended for our podcast, because, if you ever want to go back to some of our past podcasts and be like, what was that book they picked
for Teen Titans?
For Teen Titans, then that's where you can go find it. And you click on that little module, takes you to Amazon. You can pick up the book, and it helps you support the podcast. Ashley, what are your picks?
So my picks are like this. New Teen Titans Omnibus Volume 1. This is the origin of Cyborg and everything that we love about him. And this is one of his best versions.
That's a great omnibus,
in my opinion. It is.
I have that. It's great.
Then I'm going to recommend Cyborg Volume 1 Unplugged. This is the first volume of his New 52 series. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, it's his greatest solo series ever. And
yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah.
And this volume is the best of the 2 volumes from this series.
Yep.
Like I said, the wheels go off a little in the back, but if you want to see everything a Cyborg series can be, this is a great example of that. And then I'll recommend Justice League Origin, because I think if you've seen him on the Teen Titans and you've seen the new movie, you're going to want to see him on the Justice League, and this is where it all comes together.
Agreed.
So there you go. There are my 3 recommended readings.
Cool. Next, we're going to move into, possibly, if it's here, the discussion.
Yeah, we'll go have a little brief discussion.
Okay, sure. Where we're just going to talk about stuff.
Yeah, so I alluded to this in the larger lesson, but Jason, Cyborg is kind of defined by being a part of 2 major teams in the DC universe, and
Indeed.
I want to ask you, do you prefer him as a Titan or as a Leaguer?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
It is.
This is a really tough question to answer, just because we don't have the amount of time as him being a Justice Leaguer as we do of him being a Teen Titan member. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard, because he's only been a Justice Leaguer since, I'm only going to count the New 52, 2011.
Yeah.
So he's only been 7 years, whereas he's been a Titan for 30 years now.
Yeah.
Over 30 years. 35, 30, almost 40 years, actually.
Yeah, closer to 40, yeah.
It was 81, I think.
It was 80.
There.
They're introduced in DC Comics Presents in 80, and then 81 is the solo series.
Yeah, so we're getting close to 40 years of him as a Titan. We've only had 7 years of him as a Leaguer. I do view him as a Teen Titan. Mm-hmm. But I do think he really gels well with being a Justice League member. And I really think one of the best things of the New 52 was putting him on Justice League. Mm-hmm. I think, one, not only helping to make it not a giant team of white dudes, but he is the most relevant character of the bunch, because the rest of those characters are these golden age people. Mm-hmm. And he's the most modern character, just because of his technology, and also because he was created in the 80s compared to all these people that were created in the 30s.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And to be honest with you, I really thought he fit well in the movie, too.
I did, too. I would love to see him stay on the Justice League, but maybe remain as a liaison to the Titans.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because I feel like when I love the Titans series that's going on right now.
Yeah.
Or at the time of this recording. But I really feel like that team is lacking in Cyborg.
Really?
I do.
Oh.
And I think part of that, too, is sort of the other media. Cyborg, for me, is really defined by the Teen Titans cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
So I expect him to be, I expect that original 5 dynamic.
Got it. I don't know. He, and he's one of the only, I can't think of any others, DC characters to do this. In
the long term, because
to graduate up and be permanently part of it.
I mean, Dick's been on the the team. Wally's been on the team.
Yes.
Roy's been on the team.
But yeah,
they've all dipped their toes.
But Wally West, I'd say, is the closest because he was Flash on the Justice League for all of the 90s.
Yes. But none of them have ever been retconned into being founding members. Like him being a founding member of the Justice League is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think of him as a Titan. That's the only answer I can give you.
That's fair.
So,
and I want to ask you really quick: are you pro Cyborg solo movie?
Ooh.
And it's not wrong. It's just your opinion.
Look, you can go find our full Justice League review on youtube.com/Jawiin. I definitely don't want this to turn into a Justice League review. I had fun with it, had problems. But one of the problems that I did not have with that movie was Cyborg. I thought Ray Fisher was really cool. And I thought the way he decided to play that character, I think, was intriguing. So it's funny, before the Justice League movie, I was like, no, do not make a Cyborg movie. After the Justice League movie, yeah, I want to see that movie. I want to see a Cyborg movie with Ray Fisher.
I agree. I think both the cartoon and the movie really succeed in proving that. I think Cyborg is a character that a lot of people think they don't care about and are not interested in. And I think he's had two great on-screen interpretations that prove how wonderful this character is.
Sure, agreed.
All right, that's my discussion.
All right, so let's move into the second to final, the teaching tweet where Professor Ashley will distill all of Cyborg down to is it 280 characters now? I don't know.
Yes. Well, I hated it's that stupid circle.
I'm gonna blame Cyborg for this.
Mine will definitely fit in 140.
All right, great. 140 characters or less. You can find it on our Twitter at GHL Podcast.
Cyborg, the man with some machines we all like more than we expect. #booyah, #Borg life.
You know, I was really expecting you to just give us this tweet in binary.
Look, I don't know spit about binary.
I'm pretty certain there's a binary translator out there. Sure.
The thought literally never occurred to me.
I was expecting it. I was ready for you to go to like 11000011.
Well, I'll tell you what. If people come over to the Geek History Lesson Extra, I'll read it to you in binary.
Okay. Oh, that's worth the price of admission, I think.
I think so, too.
All right, so let's go into the final section of our podcast, the Geek History Lesson Honor Roll, where if you go over to iTunes, you leave us a 5-star review, we welcome you into the Teacher's Lounge. We give you a nice Danish.
Use the Keurig.
You can use the Keurig. We give you a back rub, and I will play all kinds of computer sounds on my phone for you all hours of the day. Ashley, who joins the honor roll today?
Miko40913 joins the honor roll today saying, nostalgic, 5 stars. I love this podcast, and I love the meet cute section because it takes me back to when I first met the characters and truly got into comic books. Michael. Thank you so much, Michael, for your 5-star review on iTunes.
Welcome to the GHL Honor Roll. Enjoy the Danish and the creepy back rub. If you want to be like Michael, then go over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. We don't care what you say, but leave a 5-star review, and that helps promote our podcast on iTunes because iTunes is a big place.
It's a huge place.
There's a lot of stuff on there, and it's the only way that we
gotta fight people for relevance.
Man, we gotta fight like techno,
and we can't fist fight
people and make sound like. Look, if you don't go over there and help us with that, then how will you ever enjoy any of these computer sounds that I play for you on podcasts? That's all I gotta say. So iTunes is also the place where you can subscribe to the podcast, as well as Stitcher and SoundCloud, and you can find us on Spotify. And Ashley, if they want to suggest this lesson, like your awesome TA today, who was that again, please?
Well, it was at Cam Senses, and if you want to be cool like them of the indeterminate gender, you can do that on Twitter at GHL Podcast, Facebook.com/GeekHistoryLesson, or GeekHistoryLesson.com. There's a bunch of ways to contact us in all of those places. Also,
don't worry, my friends. If you are sitting there right now being like, Geek History Lesson's over, what? I need more. You luckily enough can go over to patreon.com/Jawiin.
Too true.
Jawiin. You can become an amazing patron over there, and you can listen to our Geek History Lesson Extra podcast, where we give you a little bit more flavor. And this week, our exclusive podcast to Patreon will be about what, Ashley?
We're going to rank robot superheroes.
We're going to rank robot superheroes.
And I'm going to read my teaching tweet in binary.
And she's going to read her teaching tweet in binary. You're going to hear a lot of this. A lot of sounds.
I don't remember any of those.
Here, listen to all these Macs. Cyborg's brothers.
They're all just going like an octave lower. Oh, that one went back.
That's the 20th anniversary Macintosh.
I think that's.
Those are the.
I think that's Mario.
Those are the death chimes of early Macintoshes. So you're going to hear lots of that.
Wow.
Go over to patreon.com/Jawiin. Help support this podcast and help support making sure that we can keep doing this podcast every single week. We thank everybody that does that. You can find me on Twitter at Jawiin, Jawiin. Find Ashley on Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson, and the podcast is on Twitter at GHL Podcast. That is it. We hope you cybernetically enjoyed this lesson. Don't forget to go pick up Jupiter Jet this week if you're in your comic book shop. And if you're listening in the future, it's probably there. Probably the trade's there. Who knows? Maybe Volume 2's there. Just go to your comic shop and ask them for Jupiter Jet if you like this podcast. So there you go. I am Jason 11111101 Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And Professor Ashley, will you please close out this cybernetic podcast?
Class is now dismissed.